Assemblyman Mainshine
Yeah, I know.
is here.
I know. Next would be Assemblywoman Brown,
Oh.
who's been very patient. We just got file.
No, it's Assembly, well, and then after that, Assemblywoman Brown. Senator Mainshine, welcome to the, I'm doing this. Assembly member.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. Today I present AB 1051. We are accepting the amendments per the request of the chair that would remove Section 3 of the bill pertaining to the school zone violations. Human trafficking is increasing at an alarming rate across the country, especially in San Diego County. Criminal street gangs have embraced pimping and human trafficking as a new revenue booster, as it now rivals narcotic sales as a major source of funding for many gangs. The crime targets our most vulnerable youth, who are often recruited within the walls of the schools they attend. Unfortunately, one of our witnesses, the superintendent of Grossmont Union High School District, was unable to attend the hearing, but he would have testified about the tragic and too frequent experience of the children in his school district and many others across the state. The Department of State's Trafficking in Person Report 2010 includes the United States in its rankings for the first time in its 10-year history, showing the U.S. as a growing magnet for traffickers to conduct their business. The Central Intelligence Agency estimated that approximately 15,000 to 17,500 men, women, and children are trafficked into the U.S. each year, making the U.S. one of the top 3 trafficking destinations in the world. California, New York, Texas, and Nevada are the top destination states in the country. AB 1051 will add human trafficking to the list of crimes to enhance penalties for persons affiliated with a criminal street gang. Today I have with me Alameda County District Attorney Nancy O'Malley to testify in support. Thank you for the opportunity to present AB 1051, and I respectfully request your aye vote.
Thank you. Witnesses in support of the bill.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. I am Nancy O'Malley, the DA from Alameda County, and I have been working on this issue since 1994, and I'm proud to say that my office has a national reputation as being a leader in not only addressing human trafficking, and particularly human trafficking of children, but also we have been engaged in the last year in looking at the role of gangs in human trafficking. We hear from our young women who are being separated away from their traffickers more and more, and young men. We can never forget that boys are being trafficked also. But we hear from them that for them, violence is escalating, and that on the average, some of these young women are being required to earn between $800 and $1,200 a day at the direction of gangs that have pulled them into their network. We also are hearing from them, as I said, that the violence is escalating, and that it is even more apparent when they are being controlled by gangs. Because what's happening now, and what we're seeing in my county and what we're seeing across the state, is that that victim or those victims do not belong to one gang member, they belong to the gang. So if one steps away or gets arrested or leaves the gang or whatever happens, that those girls don't get to leave. They are just picked up by someone else and required to continue their work. And we have been interviewing gang members who, one particular quote that is very disturbing and very troubling is that this gang member told us that they are now funding their war with human trafficking and credit card fraud. That's how they're buying their guns, and what they're using their guns for are for murders and carjackings and other very violent crimes in our community. So these young women and boys are being exploited at the most aggressive, violent level. They are funding the gang activity that's going on now in our state. We're hearing this through wiretapping, through interviewing, through talking to the girls and some boys, and the attitude of the gang members, which is essentially that this is an easy way to make money, and it is a way that they can really grow their enterprise. I can only, and I know that you all have heard a lot about human trafficking, and I appreciate the Assembly member's description as well. But the psychological and emotional damage and impact of human trafficking on these young people can be lifelong and can be incredibly destructive, and many end up being killed. But when you add on the terror that is associated with being controlled by a gang, not just to the individual girl, but also to the threats of her own family or her or other people with whom she associates, that terror really escalates the amount of psychological control and ergo psychological damage that these girls are suffering. And so, as Assembly Member said, that what this does is it adds the human trafficking to the list of what can be a predicate crime for the gang enhancement. And it just, it's something that is so, in my opinion, very critical now to address this escalating, growing enterprise. And I urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Others in support?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. Kathy Christian, representing the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, also a sponsor of this bill. Thank the Assembly Member and District Attorney O'Malley for all of the work to bring this issue forward. Our supervisors have personally witnessed and become aware of, by spending time with the Sheriff's Department, of the level of this problem in San Diego County. I know it's not unique to San Diego County, but the fact that it spread into the schools, there was a major arrest of gang activity in 2 of the high schools in the Grossmont High School District, a high school district where I went to one of the schools, was very shocking. That just occurred last December, to the point where the school district worked with the Department of Education to put together a preventative pamphlet to distribute to teachers and parents about how to be aware of trafficking. So the gang aspect is very troubling, and we very much appreciate the hard work that's being done and urge your support. Thank you.
John Lovell, on behalf of the California Police Chiefs Association and the California Narcotic Officers Association. This is a low-risk, high-revenue return crime, and it lends itself to being used by organized criminal enterprises like street gangs. About a month and a half ago, I was watching Azteca America on television, and the newscaster from Mexico City was breathlessly talking about how human trafficking had now replaced murder, extortion, and kidnapping as primary revenue sources for drug cartels. The number one was still narcotics, but number 2 is now human trafficking. Why? Because it's low risk, high return. If I'm going to sell you dope, I've got to go and buy dope from someone else so I can sell it to someone else. But if I'm in human trafficking, I sell my victim again and again and again. This is a very important bill. We commend the author for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Others in support, and you could do Me Too's unless you have something salient to add, please.
Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Marla Marshall, and I represent Sheriff Bill Gore, San Diego County Sheriff's Department. And all I want to say is that due to the proliferation of the gang involvement with human trafficking, we have now formed a multi-jurisdictional task force to address the issue, and this bill would create another tool for us.
Sean Rondo, California Peace Officers Association, also in strong support, and we appreciate the author bringing it forward.
Good morning. Barbara Ferguson on behalf of San Bernardino County in support.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors in support.
Donna Seitz representing the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors in strong support. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association in support.
Madam Chair, Ryan Sherman on behalf of Los Angeles County Professional Peace Officers, Long Beach, Sacramento Deputy Sheriffs, and Fraternal Order of Police in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others in support? Are there speakers in opposition to the bill? Please come forward.
Micah Doctoroff on behalf of the ACLU of California. We had opposed the bill unless amended to remove the 1-year sentence enhancement. It's my understanding that the author has done that, and we appreciate him taking that amendment, so we would remove our opposition.
Jesse Stout, Legal Services for Prisoners of Children. We had also primarily opposed the bill on the basis of Section 3, which we understand is being amended to be removed today. And we appreciate that amendment and thank the author for that compromise. And just wanted to make the additional point that the remaining 2 sections of the bill, 1 and 2, are based on the definition of human trafficking in California Penal Code Section 236.1. any person who deprives or violates the personal liberty of another with the intent to obtain forced labor or services, which, to our understanding, could also include anyone convicted of common prostitution as opposed to large-scale human trafficking. So we have the continued ongoing concern and opposition to this legislation as drafted that this could rope anyone involved in any form of common, small, or large prostitution into the new gang enhancement for human trafficking, regardless of the size or scale of their operation, and also regardless of whether the operation has involved any further forced enslavement of anyone for sexual services. So we would additionally request a further amendment further on down the line that this bill would further distinguish whether the prostitution or human trafficking at issue for this gang enhancement involves any further large-scale criminal activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be briefer this time.
Assemblyman
Manchin, I want to thank you for bringing this forward. Human trafficking is particularly a problem in my county, in Riverside County. We've been working with our sheriff and our gang task force to address those issues. We heard from San Bernardino, San Diego, so it's, and I know it's just not a Southern California issue, it's a Northern California issue too, and I appreciate the fact that you brought this forward, and we'll have some enhancements by linking these crimes to criminal gang activity, which is appropriate. I think Mr. Lovell said it best, you know, low risk, high return, and second only to drugs. So thank you for bringing it forward, and I've moved the bill.
Thank you. The bill has been moved as amended to appropriations. Are there other questions or comments? Would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members, and I would respectfully request your aye vote.
Thank you. I am going to support your bill today. It makes sense to me that we add human trafficking to the 33 other other qualifications that lead to gang-related convictions. I couldn't help but reflect, though, that there are 33 of them. Now there will be 34, I think. And we need to know a lot more about gangs and how we break them up or how we discourage or give young people different opportunities. Because otherwise it seems like we are kind of working ourselves into a circle. I don't know enough about them. I don't know what kinds of studies have been done about them or what kinds of effective interventions other than some of the restorative justice programs in high schools. As the DA from Alameda County, our good DA who's worked on this for so long, has probably knows they've cut down on suspensions in some of the Oakland middle schools by 2/3 by trying to do early intervention and restorative justice. So I hope that we can work on all those things, but in the meantime, this is, I think, a common sense addition as we try to deal with law enforcement. And I would just point out to some of the opposition, it is sexual services, but it's also things like sweatshops, where many, many young immigrant women have been essentially kept as slaves behind the sewing machine in the basement. And we need to really work on all of that. So thank you very much. And again, I know that our city, our DA in Alameda County has been working on all of these things, and it helps us move forward. So thank you. Please read the roll.
Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Glazer? Glazer, aye. Leto? Liu? Liu, aye. Monning?
Aye.
Monning, aye. Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye.
Okay, that bill has enough votes to pass. We'll hold the roll open for the absent members. Thank you. Assembly Member Brown.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. I'm here to bring you AB 1156. This is a realignment cleanup bill. Under realignment, persons convicted of a felony who are sentenced to state prison and county jails receive different levels of treatment. For example, courts are empowered to provide prison inmates who are terminally ill or medically incapacitated with a hearing for compassionate release, but this is not provided for inmates in county jail. This bill applies the same provisions to the law to a person convicted of a felony in state prison to persons convicted of a felony in county jail. I have witnesses who will talk about further about this bill. And Larry, would you like to self-introduce?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. Larry Doyle on behalf of the Conference of California Bar Associations. We're the source of 3 of the provisions of the bill and strong supporter of the whole thing. This bill is all about consistency and equity. It's based on the concept that an individual has been convicted of a felony should not be deprived of certain opportunities provided under existing law simply because he or she is under a realignment now doing time in county jail rather than state prison. This includes the ability to have a sentence recalled, the ability to apply for a certificate of rehabilitation, and also the ability to have non-DUI vehicle code violations dismissed so that the inmate can begin with a clean slate as much as you can if you're coming out with a felony conviction once you have been released. The last provision, I think, is the one that's been controversial. I want to speak just very briefly about that because it's based on a mistaken belief that the reason that these vehicle code provisions have been dismissed is because the distance that the prisoner would have to travel to the state prison, and that this shouldn't apply when they're doing their time in county jail because these, the jail may be just across the street. But first of all, that's not actually true. In larger counties like Los Angeles, you're going across the entire county, and so that provision is there. But more importantly, that the reason this was enacted, again, was because it is equitable to allow someone who has completed their sentence to be able to go forth and to be able to get a job without having to worry about unnecessary fines or without the possibility of having lost a license, which means that if those rare circumstances when they can't get a job, they can keep the job because they can drive to it. So this, we think, is a very consistent, very good provision. We very much hope that the committee will support the bill, all of you.
Thank you. Others in support?
I'm Garrick Byers. I'm the immediate past president of the California Public Defenders Association, who are the sponsors of this bill. I want to thank Assemblymember Brown for authoring this bill and echo the comments just made. This bill addresses what are the main complaints that I hear from defense attorneys around the state about realignment that I think are easily cured in a non-controversial way. As was just pointed out, some of these inequities are really unintended consequences of an extremely complex bill. And I don't think, for example, I don't think the legislature intended that a person getting a long county jail sentence could not rehabilitate himself through the certificate process or the 1203.4 process. So this addresses those needs in a simple, I think, fair way.
Thank you.
Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California chapter. For the reasons previously stated, we also support. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others in support?
Jesse Stout, Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. One of our organization's main goals is for pursuing the successful reentry of people following incarceration, and this bill does an excellent progress towards that goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Micah Doctoroff, ACLU of California, in support.
Thank you.
Dennis Garcia on behalf of the California Attorneys for Criminal Justice, in support.
Thank you. Are there others in support? Are there speakers in opposition to the bill? Seeing and hearing none. Are there questions or comments, or is there a motion from the committee? Senator Stone and Senator Liu.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Assemblywoman Brown. Number one, it's an honor to serve with you in the Inland Empire. appreciate you bringing this forward. I agree with 90%, 95% of what your bill is trying to accomplish. The only concern I have is that we're foregoing vehicle code infractions made. We're foregoing vehicle infractions that made sense when we were putting people in state prison. But today, we're putting people in county jails, which is usually adjacent to a county court. So my concern is that we're basically erasing their violations, their vehicle code violations. If non-felonious citizens have to pay traffic fines to get points on their record, why are we rewarding felons in county jails to do the same? And would you consider any kind of amendment to get rid of that? Because I would love to support your bill.
Would you like to answer that?
Well, that was the provision that I addressed specifically in my opening remarks, and of course it's Assemblymember Brown's bill, and she's the only one who can make a determination as to whether or not. As a sponsor of the bill, I would say no. I think that for the reasons. It's not about, it's not about waiving these things. We're talking about people who are doing felony time. And right now, if you've got this thing, you're doing time for a felony, and you also made a California stop at a red light, and you are now looking at a $800 fine or whatever that is now worth with administrative fees, and you've maybe missed the first deadline, which means that it doubles, and you're looking at losing your license. So you finish doing felony time, you get out, and but you can't get you have your license yanked. You don't have the money. You've been in prison.
I agree with you.
There are all these things that are going on.
Costs certainly shouldn't continue, but was there ever any consideration to tolling the fines until somebody gets out of local jail? I think you'll agree with me that originally these were erased because when they went off to state prison, there was no way for them to adjudicate their traffic violation. Now that they're in the same building, basically, why not just toll them and hold them accountable like everybody else?
Two things. The people who have discussed who developed the bill, and I'm just the poor country lobbyist presenting it here, but the people who developed the bills, who are very involved in this, advised me that the reason that it was created was because of the consistency. It's sort of like, you've done this, let's let them start with as clean a slate as you can, given the fact that you've got a felony conviction on your record. But again, it depends on county by county. In Sacramento, the court is not too far away, and I suppose you could do that if you have the money, or you can get your family to pony up the fine. On the other hand, in Los Angeles County, the men's jail facility is at the north end of the county, the women's is at the south end. There are dozens of courthouses in between. So the cost,
but at least it's in the same
fiscally,
county, right?
The cost of trying to resolve this issue is vastly more than you can ever hope to recoup in terms of fine, in addition to what we see as the inequity of doing that. So with all respect, sir, Senator,
I appreciate your comments, but we're talking about intra-county instead of intra-state. You could have a person that was convicted, goes up to San Quentin. It's very difficult for them to go back to Riverside County to fight going through a red light infraction. So anyway, I just bring this up for your consideration.
Well, I think that with AB 109, there were a lot of things that happened that are affecting the counties as these inmates are returning to the county to finish out their time. I also know that one of the things I used to talk about a long time ago was, what are we going to do whenever people are going to have to come back home after they have been in jail? This is a way for us to help that process. When you start talking about the city of Fontana, one of the things that the police chief does there is the first thing he does whenever he looks at the realignment population is he puts a DMV in a building where they can come in and start clearing up their records so that they can get their license. That's because Chief Jones is just that kind of person that thinks that's really important so that he can get his citizens back on track. I think the more we can do to help, the better it'll be.
Okay, are there other, Senator Liu? Okay, the bill has been moved. The motion is due pass to appropriations. Would you like to close?
I just ask for your vote, your affirmative vote. Thank you.
Good bill. Again, simplifies and keeps more unity in our very, very convoluted codes. Happy to support your bill. Please read the roll.
Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Glazer? Glazer, aye. Leno? Lou? Lou, aye. Monning?
Aye.
Monning, aye. Stone? Stone, no.
Okay, Assemblymember Thurman is here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. Welcome to the committee, Assemblymember.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. With your permission, I'd like to present AB 1343.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's an honor to present this bill today. As you know, this bill would codify what our courts have stated, that in the case of Padilla versus Kentucky, that anytime there is a matter where someone is involved in the criminal justice system, that individual should be informed that one of the consequences of the matter could have an impact on deportation or immigration consequences, and that it's in the best interest of our courts for this conversation to come from both defense counsel as well as from the prosecutors as they consider plea arrangements and plea bargaining, that should be considered. We have many families in California that have been impacted because of immigrant status and deportations, and our courts have always guaranteed the rights of all before our courts to have due process and the right to a fair trial. We believe that this codification is consistent with that. I'm happy today to have a witness who would be happy to share with you more details should you have any questions, and that is Kathy Brady from the Immigrant Legal Resource Center.
Thank you. Testimony and support?
Well, I think this is a very important bill. It codifies existing law, but what we're trying to do with it is get more of a consistent application across the state of this work. We have some public defender offices, some prosecution offices that are very much on board, others that are not, and we're doing everything we can to bring this forward to people. As you may know, 1 out of 4 people living in our state was born in a foreign country. 1 out of 2 children living in our state lives in a household headed by at least one foreign-born person. Many people without this kind of advice plead guilty to a single misdemeanor and end up being deported, essentially permanently banished, because their defender viewed it only from the criminal law viewpoint and said, this is great, you'll have 5 days, credit for time served, it's okay. And then the person ends up getting deported to Cambodia. So we have in place ways to help defense counsel to make pleas in an effective way and to tell people exactly what they're really getting into when they plead guilty. And this is to support continuing this trend among defender offices as well as prosecutor offices.
Madam Chair, members, Khalif Ostagai, on behalf of the California Public Defenders Association, we work closely with the Assembly member on the language of this bill, and we're in strong support.
Thank you. Others in support? There is no opposition to the bill, so you can do Me Too's.
Steven Sepulveda on behalf of the California Immigrant Policy Center, in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Dennis Garcia on behalf of the California Attorneys for Criminal Justice in support.
Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California Chapter in support.
Jim Lindberg on behalf of the Friends Committee on Legislation of California in support.
Micah Doctoroff on behalf of the ACLU of California in support.
Jesse Stout, Legal Services for Prisoners with Children in support.
Good. Speakers in opposition to the bill? Seeing and hearing none, are there questions or comments from committee members, or is there a motion?
The bill.
The bill's been moved. The motion is due pass to appropriations. And I believe that Senator Glazer, Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say briefly that I'm in support of the bill, and I think this is an example of having it be done the right way, with an obligation on defense counsel to provide this important information to a defendant. This committee passed out a bill a few weeks ago, which I didn't support because it put that burden on the court, and it was a long list of things that I think was going to take a lot of time and money, yet we agreed on the underlying purpose of it, which was to make sure people understood consequences. And I think in this example, it's being done in the right way. I'm happy to support it.
Thanks, Senator.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I respectfully have to oppose the bill. We're basically requiring district attorneys to become Border Patrol and ICE officials. I think they should be exclusively focused on criminal law issues and not one's legal status when deciding what kind of charges to be filed against a criminal. Demanding a prosecutor to treat non-citizens more favorably than citizens, I think, smacks horrible in the eyes of true justice. You know, what happened to equal protection under the law? An American may get a tougher deal than a non-citizen because there won't be immigration consequences considered. It's another example of asking to treat non-citizens better than our own citizens. It seems as though this bill is just making a concerted effort in keeping immigrant criminals in our state. We all just witnessed a heinous, horrible incident in San Francisco because of failed government policies. I think passing a bill like this that is going to hamstring district attorneys to take into consideration when they file charges, the severity of charges based on one's legal status, is a mockery of justice, and for those reasons I can't support it.
Senator Liu, did you? Oh, okay. Well, would you like to respond, and would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator. I think that I know that this bill simply is asking for codification and saying that a defense attorney should be informing the person before the court that there are many consequences, including deportation. I appreciate your feedback because it gives us an opportunity, should this bill pass from this committee and move on to further discussion, we have an opportunity to clarify that this bill in no way intends or would give any different treatment to anyone who comes before the court, whether a citizen or non-citizen. It simply says that everyone who comes before the court should be informed of the possible consequences, as I believe our courts have held.
But it's something, in all due respect,
Okay,
if I may.
Through the chair.
Thank you. I wholeheartedly support the defense attorney discussing the immigration status and the crimes that have been committed. What I do object to is why a district attorney needs to take the immigration status in consideration for the charges that are being filed against that criminal. I think that part of the bill is wrong, and hopefully you'll consider some amendments as it moves forward.
Yes.
Through the chair, again, appreciate the feedback, and we certainly will consider the conversation. As I understand it, having a DA inform a defendant of the possibility of immigration just means that if you're going to make a plea arrangement, that you have informed consent, and that you won't later say that you made a decision without, understanding the ramifications of that decision. I appreciate your concerns and consideration. Thank you very much.
Could I say something?
Yeah.
I just want to make two quick points. One is that the Supreme Court in Padilla said there are a lot of advantages to the prosecution in this because a defendant will be willing to plead more quickly to an offense if they know that they can get one that does not have a bad immigration consequence. And second, what we do when we advise public defenders is to get at least the same level of criminal punishment, but it's a very technical field. We often plead to a different misdemeanor. And in fact, we often advise people to plead up because for illogical reasons, for example, a sale statute is better than a possession for sale statute. So it is by no means our intent or the reality that we are getting immigrants off safer. In fact, if anything, they pay a price in the criminal justice system.
Thank you very much for that clarification. The bill has been moved. The motion is due pass to appropriations. Please read the roll.
Hancock.
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Glazer. Glazer, aye. Leno. Liu. Liu, aye. Monning. Stone.
No.
Stone, no.
Okay. That bill will hold the roll open for the absent members. Thank you.